One of the things I want to say about art, when you talk about investment, that's different than real estate is you don't have to pay real estate tax on it. You don't have to do maintenance on it. You don't have to mow the lawn. And you can pick it up and sell it in any world market. You cannot do that with the Empire State Building.
You're right. Welcome to Blueprint for Closers. Today we have the pleasure of having our friend Emily Santangelo, art dealer, broker, consultant.
Yeah. It's a dream because the thing that really propelled this whole process was my love and my desire to own that one piece.
There is a direct correlation between people in the real estate game, whether it be hotels or investors. 90% of your clients are in the real estate game.
A lot of very wealthy people actually offset their investment portfolio from stocks, real estate, and art.
Makes sense. Liquid.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Blueprint for Closers. My name is Dominic Ciccarelli with my co-host Rob Nixon. Welcome to episode 17. Today we have the pleasure of having our friend Emily Santangelo. Welcome. Emily is a art dealer, broker, consultant. And we have her here today because not only do we know each other a long time, but we've noticed there's a direct correlation between a lot of people that develop real estate or in the real estate game and people that invest in art. I've personally bought some art from you, and you have a very unique, exciting business that you're involved in. And I think a lot of people would be interested in it. So before we get kind of into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and who is Emily and how you got into art?
Okay, well, Emily Santangelo here. Born in Brooklyn, raised in Staten Island. And my path to this profession was very circuitous. I was a finance major. I know nothing about art. Don't have an MFA, but people tell me that that's part of why I do well at this, because I look at things in a very different perspective. Many years ago, I saw a Picasso etching in a gallery and I wanted to purchase it. It was $3,000. At the time, I was a single mom. I had just gotten a townhouse. It was my son and I. We had no furniture other than our bedrooms. And I was like, I want this piece. I convinced the gallery owner to sell it to me over time. And I would go into the city once a week and pay him in increments. But when I was there, I would always see a different exhibition. And I started learning about new artists and paintings and all of that. And I realized everything I loved, I couldn't afford. But I found out there's such thing as editions, print editions, which are wonderful. They are great to collect. They appreciate in value. And they're a wonderful source for an artist to expand their collector base because it's like an entry level for collectors. I found out about that. And then I had met a lot of artists through this gallery and going to all these things. And I started a print publishing company. And what I would do is get the artist to make the image, print it, and I would pre-sell the editions. For example, the one that I did with Jane Dixon was $600. So it was going to cost me $10,000 to make an edition of 99 of this print. So do the math. I had to pre-sell about 12. So I did that, with the caveat to everyone that was buying it at $600 that when it was released, it would be $900. So they would already know they were getting a deal on it.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So it was like I OPM'd the edition, right? Got the money, made the edition. Then she was represented by a gallery that debuted it, sold another 10 at $900, and on and on and on. And I kept doing that. I had a lot of success with that. And I made a lot of great relationships. And a lot of the artists and people that knew me were encouraging me to open up a gallery, which I didn't know I shouldn't do. So I did it. So I opened up a gallery in the Starrett Lehigh building in Chelsea. I took 3,000 square feet on the 18th floor. And a lot of the artists that I had worked with and done editions with came with me.
Okay. My
first show was reviewed in Art in America very favorably. It appeared in the New York Post. The Post used to have top 10 things to do in New York tonight. Well, the night of my gallery opened, the number one thing was to watch the last episode of George Clooney on ER. And the number two thing was to come to my gallery for the opening. So that was really big. The gallery was a very big success. I started to realize I didn't need 3,000 square feet on the 18th floor. I was going to get 1,500 square feet on ground floor. So Martha Stewart came along and she bought out the whole floor on the 18th floor of the Starrett Lehigh building for her television studio. So everybody signed a deal with her, made some money. Now I'm looking for space, ground floor. It's the summer. I don't find anything. What happens? September 11th.
I was just going to ask what years these were, but you just answered my question.
September 11th. And it was like, I can't sign a 10-year lease now. What am I going to do?
Time.
It's
The whole
scary.
world ended, yeah.
And, shame on me. I didn't realize how resilient New Yorkers are and that it would come back that fast. But I also really did not have a bankroll to withstand all that. It's just like with people that started opening businesses when COVID happened,
Bad time, yeah.
what wasn't
Too
right.
much uncertainty.
But the best part of that story is that I had already had a collector base and I had a stable and resources in the art world from artists. And it allowed me to work with people one-on-one and not have to plan a show every 6 weeks and tell Dom, this is fabulous. You should buy this. And 6 weeks later, when you come in, this is fabulous and you should buy that. So I felt like there was more
Instead of just be very
professional
salesy.
integrity and not sales pitch, right?
Yep.
And I can sit with you or a developer and it's your needs, your budget, and we have these one-on-ones. So I morphed into a consultant and I stripped myself of all the overhead, the rent, and all the things that come with it. And that was basically how this business was built.
So how many years went by from when you first went into there and saw that Picasso print? I believe it was that first print to when you got to 9/11. So how many years?
It was really short, 97 to 4 years.
Okay, wow,
4 years.
and you realized you loved it from the moment you got into it.
It's a dream.
Yeah.
It's a dream because the thing that really propelled this whole process was my love and my desire to own that one piece.
Which is really cool. Do you still have it?
I still have it. I won't sell it. It's my
That's
good
cool.
luck charm.
That's cool.
Wow.
And it's signed in 2 places by Picasso in black pencil and in red pencil. And it's of a female on a balcony overlooking a bullfight. So it really has those elements of Picasso, but it also has
Some meaning.
that dreamy kind of feeling. You
Yeah.
know, it's not the Minotaur, it's not scary stuff that Picasso can do sometimes. So
Okay, so it's
Very
now
friendly.
post 9/11. You've made a lot of money, but you also got beat up a little bit in the space. You become a consultant and you realize you don't need a brick and mortar.
correct.
So now what does this consulting company do?
Mostly at the time, I was working with private individuals. And then I was on the board at Snug Harbor for a while. And I would get to meet a lot of artists over there. One of the stories, I happened to have met a celebrity at a party who was doing a restaurant in New York. And they asked me if I would do the artwork for them. So I did it with an artist from Snug Harbor. And my first big foray was with Disney because a Disney executive had come into that space and wanted to do something with that artist. So they flew me out to Los Angeles. I worked on the Pearl Harbor movie. And then I had some real cred with, big companies,
That's all it takes, that one breakthrough thing and the floodgates open, right?
I got paid in Mickey Mouse checks, which were very cashable.
Now, this Snug Harbor, I'm not sure if I'm familiar with Snug Harbor and what they were doing back then.
Snug Harbor still exists. They have the Japanese gardens.
Yeah.
They have the art galleries. It's a wonderful institution all the way down, not Bay Street. What's that other
Richmond
street?
Terrace.
Richmond Terrace, right.
Yeah, I knew the
Yeah.
art gallery was there, but I didn't think it had that much foot traffic from people outside of maybe locally in Staten Island getting eyes on it.
No, but they brought some amazing things over the years.
Yeah, they've done some really good things.
I gotta go check that out.
Yeah.
I've never actually been in there. I've heard about it.
Is there an art style or something you favor or specialize in per se? I know there was when did street art become as popular? That's more recent, right?
Well, no, that's debatable because if I were to
In the 80s, I mean, really.
if I were to ever
graffiti.
say that to any of the artists that I know, like Eric Hayes is a great graffiti artist. He's been doing this his whole life. I don't want to call out his age, but he's probably been doing it for 40 years. Timothy Curtis is in his mid-30s, but he's been doing it since he's a teenager. Street art existed forever. It just has had a moment, and some street artists don't even like it because their idea is they didn't really want to get into this.
Right. They like the gritty.
Yes. They don't want to deal with developers and people like me. They just want to do their thing. And they kind of also don't want to be called out for it because these guys are spray painting the sides of buildings and things.
Yeah, Michael McClear Caves, he's an international graffiti artist. He's done some work for me, and he's a friend of mine. Marcus Suarez, who I do a lot of work with, he's in Miami now. But these guys were all like spray painting trains in the 80s. Yeah. And then kind of just kept doing it. And now they're like, legendary icons in the space.
Yeah. There's a gentleman that I work with and respect tremendously, Roger Gassman, who really has put on a couple of exhibitions in New York and Los Angeles called Beyond the Streets. And it's the history of all these graffiti artists and what they have done. And there's a catalog on it. But when it travels, it's amazing because you have Fab Five Freddy, who's actually in the National Portrait Museum in DC. Some of these people have really earned their place in history. So I deal with street artists because now a lot of developers like to put murals on the sides of their buildings. And part of that is about giving back to the community. And they also like to tap a local artist. So I kind of know the street artists of the Detroit metro area because I just finished a Godfrey Hotel there. Mm-hmm. Boston, the same thing. I've worked with Vils, who is from Lisbon, Portugal. He's done a 150-foot mural. He literally carves into concrete. So if you had this wall and it was brick, a contractor would come in and do 2 or 3 layers of plaster to get it ready. And then Vils and his team would come in and they would jackhammer into the most amazing mural you've ever seen.
Really?
And that's right now in the Fenway. It starts on the outside of the building and then goes all the way through to the inside. I think in total it's 200 feet long and 20 feet high.
How long did it take?
Yeah, I was thinking.
That whole process took, I would say, not counting the plaster from the construction side and it having to cure, it took them 6 weeks.
Okay.
That's pretty
impressive. It's actually faster than I thought it would be.
Yeah, well, he knows what he's doing and he comes in with a team.
Right. Interesting.
It was very cool.
So basically the consulting company, you connect artists with any type of people that want art, but a lot of developers, it sounds like you do a lot of work in the hotel space.
A lot.
And then, you would come into someone's private home.
Yes.
And like I said, Disney had you do something with a movie. So basically no brick and mortar. You're just a consultant. People call you when they want to put art somewhere.
Yes. And I got a break. The big move into real estate development came when Equity Residential was doing their first development project from the ground up. Typically, Equity would buy existing portfolios of other real estate companies and grab them and, put them in their portfolio. They were not in the development space at all. So they're doing this, and this project is at the corner of 10th and 23rd in Chelsea. And one of the VPs on the project was like, we're in the heart of Chelsea, which is now the epicenter of the art world. We should probably put some art in here. So I get a call from someone and they're like, listen, we would really like to hire you, but we don't really have a lot of money. I said, well, what's not a lot of money? He said, we have $60,000 and we need to do the whole building.
At what year was this?
2012.
At that point in time, what was a reasonable budget for that project, for that kind of project?
Well, reasonable. I mean, you have people that own buildings in New York that are also collectors at heart, and they would spend millions of dollars because they already got it. They were bitten by the bug and they had the passion.
Okay.
But if you were not
a collector,
a private real estate developer that also had a passion for art, trying to get art into a project was just banging your head against the wall. It only became this unique circumstance for Equity where they're like, well, we want to attract gallery owners. We want to attract collectors. So we have to put something decent on the walls, right? We just can't put the poster.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of thing. There was no typical budget is really the answer. And $60,000, listen, I come from a place of yes, I'm can do. 60,000, I can do it.
Right.
And you just get it done.
Just, I figured it out. Was it with big name artists? No. Did it look like $1 million? Yes. And that really ended up becoming sort of my motto. Anyone can write a 7-figure check and do a development project or a hotel. My niche is I can make it look like tens of millions of dollars, and you're not spending that. And at the end of the day, a lot of what I'm going to put in is going to appreciate because you're buying it at an entry level or an emerging level. Of course, I do work with blue chip now because some of my clients really want that so that they stand out from, their competitors. Right now, I'm doing a life science building in the Boston area, and the client is spending close to $2 million on art. And it's two of the artists are blue chip. And it's going to be phenomenal. And I applaud them because they want to inspire the scientists that are going to go up in that building every day and cure the next problem we have. And they're giving them this unbelievable amenity rooftop deck and, pods where they can rest, because scientists, when they go up in these labs, they start an experiment, but it may take 5 to 6 hours before they can do the next step or realize the results of it. So what do? Half of them don't live right in the city. It's too expensive. Right. So they're not going to go home and come back. So how do you keep them inspired and they're not like drained every day? You give them, something substantial, nice work area, lounge area. And when they walk in, show them that you really care and put some magnificent art on the walls.
Well, that's where the value of like architecture and interior design come in, which works hand in hand with the art, right? Like
totally.
I could design a space that will make you completely depressed and want to kill yourself, or I can design you a space that will inspire you and bright lights or whatever it is. There's a science behind it, certain colors and, proportionally correct spaces and things like that. And like I said earlier, one of the reasons we wanted you here is because, there is a direct correlation between people in the real estate game, whether it be hotels or investors, people that hold real estate in portfolios. But you would say 90%, we were talking off camera, 90% of your clients are in the real estate game.
90% is real estate development, period.
Unbelievable. I mean, this is like a staggering stat because art in general is just like a magnificent industry. But to know that 90% of people in the game are real estate, at least in your space, I mean, it just shows you how there's a similar mindset to it of these pretty spaces. The question I wanted to ask you, though, was these hotels, are they putting art in just to have pretty walls? Or are they really hoping the art increases in value?
Okay, they're not hoping it decreases. They're not
hoping it increases in value.
The people with the best intentions want what's right for the space. And I don't sell schlock. Okay? So whether they want to know it's going to invest or not, appreciate, I'm always going to give them something that I believe will. Okay. I don't have a crystal ball. I've been right a lot of times in my life, much more than I've been wrong in this particular space. And when I have conversations with them in selection, I can say, look, we can get this. It's really good, but this person's really young. I don't know where their career is going to go, but it fits and it works with our budget. Then I could say, here's this artist. They've already been collected by this museum, and they are represented by this gallery. And right now, they're at the precipice where they could skyrocket. So if you miss this opportunity, you're never going to be able to buy it at the level that you can right now. And they listen to that because at the end of the day, they want to be smart. Companies like Equity Residential are different than Toll Brothers City Living, which I do a lot of work for. Toll Brothers City Living puts art in their buildings because all their apartments are over $3 million or whatever they may be. And they need to attract the savvy, wealthy person. And the lobby is their front door. So if you live in a $10 million apartment and I come to visit you, if that lobby looks like
the whole experience
garbage,
has to be
that's a reflection of you.
Yeah.
So they'll put the artwork in these buildings, but once that condo building sells out, they don't own it anymore. It transfers to the HOA. So somebody like Toll spends the money because they want to get the project over the finish line. But investment is not their objective because they're not going to own the building, nor are they going to own that artwork. Now, I've talked to them and I've told them they should retain the artwork and lease it to the building for $1 a year. But they're like, yeah, now they're like, let them have it until one day I knock on their door and tell them, by the way, that's $500,000 now.
Right.
Now, Equity Residential, in contrast to that, And a lot of the other developers that I work with that do multifamily, like Hunter Pasteur, they're rental properties. So they will retain ownership of all the artwork in that space.
Right.
And if I said to them, the piece in the lobby is now worth X amount of dollars, they have the ability to take that out and put something else different and collect that money.
Well, that was my next question is, what percentage of hotel projects, residential projects that you've done over the last 10 years, is that art still there? Or are they flipping it out every couple of years, or in general moving with times? How does that typically work?
The art is still there. And I think mostly because with these big publicly traded companies, there's always this turnover of personnel. A lot of the people I've done business with over the last 10 years have been given golden parachutes because they got the top of the food chain and they're making all this money, or they want to go out on their own and start their own development company. The project's a success. They keep moving on as long as they keep renting. They're not looking at that. Mm-hmm. Now, I've brought to the attention of one developer in Naples, Florida, that a piece that he bought from me for $9,000 by an artist, Ivy Haldeman, had recently went up at auction, and you're talking about in 3 years, for $142,000 at Phillips. And I contacted him and I'm like, look, he has it in the ladies' card room of this building. It's not in the lobby. It's in the ladies' card room. And I said, this piece is $142,000. The guy's a billionaire. His story is fantastic. And I said, do you want to take it and sell it or put it in your home and we'll get something else? He's like, let them have it.
Wow.
So he still had it. But that was one of those things I felt compelled. I had to let them know. So, And I like to do that from time to time, not just for the reasons of insurance and other things, but I like to remind them what great decisions we made together.
Sure.
I was going to say that piece that, let's just say, Toll Brothers puts in the lobby and says, oh, just give it to the HOA. If he was to keep it and lease it for the buck, he's now responsible to make sure that that piece is in good shape and it's not being destroyed and no one's throwing paint on it or getting it dirty and the lighting is right. So there's a liability because he's not.
Well, they have to insure it too.
Right. And that person's not on site to watch it every day to see what's going on.
Right.
And the HOA is not watching it for leasing it for $1 a year or whatever it might be. So I understand why Toll Brothers is saying let them have it because it's almost a liability off their plate as well. But you're right. The upside could be huge.
The upside has been huge for a lot of my clients. And they're very happy about it. And that's why I keep getting projects.
Every project you do you catalog? Do you have a file at home that every development project you've done, what art's there? And you can go back and say, hey, wait a minute, that piece just popped.
I can. But then I also hand over to them a catalog so that they can, for insurance purposes, because one of the other things is that I tell them is right now, when you buy this artwork, it's an expense on your balance sheet. But next year, it's an asset. They need to have all the paperwork. I've done 2 White Elephant Hotels projects, one in Palm Beach and one in Nantucket. And they're wonderful clients. And they put me in touch with their insurance carrier or the insurance people. And we have a whole spreadsheet that tells every artwork, the artist, the title, the size, the dollar value of it, and what room it's in. So that, because the insurance company needs to have that much specificity in order to really cover them properly.
Right.
Interesting.
So,
and in a hotel, somebody wants to bang up a hotel room, one of the suites.
They need to know, right?
They could lose $100,000.
Right. So true collectors, I find, collect, right? They don't want to let go of things. People that truly collect and really understand it, whatever it may be, art, real estate, watches, jewelry, whatever it may be. Do you have a lot of clients or many clients that are just in it for the investment game? They're just buying in and out of stuff?
Not really, but they love hearing. Some of them hate hearing the one that got away because sometimes it's not a sales pitch when I say, look, if you don't buy this now, I understand, but if you want to buy it in a year from now, it's probably not going to be at this level. And I have clients that would literally come on the show and tell you that they would kick themselves because it takes a while. Sometimes you don't always gravitate to something you see initially. It takes time.
Yeah.
Or you see it more, or it gets validated by other people. And then you feel more confident about putting your money into it.
Right.
But I don't really have the clients that are in the flipping mode. I know of them that, as a matter of fact, they keep their art in what's called free ports.
Yeah. Oh, so that's a whole tax thing.
So they never have to pay tax on it.
Is that like a trust?
Do you? No, it's basically a tax shelter.
So they have them in Delaware. They have them in Switzerland. They have them all over the world.
Like big collectors. They keep them in free ports. So they're never, they're always in transport technically.
Yeah. Once they take ownership on it, they have to pay
business.
Sales tax or all
capital gains, all types of stuff. Yeah.
And it gets into real money.
Big money.
Huge money.
So you're in the game a long time. Let's call it 30 years. Artists come to you and they're like, hey, blow me up. Like, how does that work? Because I know you and I have spoke and you've represented some artists throughout the years. I'm not going to mention names because I don't know your relationship with them now. But how does that work? So, or do you go to the artist and say, wait, this guy's or woman is hot right now. Let me make a deal with them. Like, how would that work?
No, usually they approach me, but you learn and you realize just stick to what your wheelhouse is, and I can approach an artist that I see that I want to work with, and then we develop a relationship. I don't engage in a, exclusive kind of relationship with anybody anymore because it's like having another child.
You're trying to also get away from that salesy thing too, from the
where you're
point you said earlier, where you're just doing it, you got to sell it.
They suck the life out of you. Yeah. It's like you have to be their therapist. You have to manage their money. You tell them they shouldn't do this. They don't listen to you because, it's just too much. So I stopped that. As a matter of fact, one person came to me. His name is Joe Whale, Doodle Boy. And the father, and at the time he was like 7 years old. And the father wanted me to represent him. And I was like, this is too much responsibility to represent your child. So,
right.
And the kid is really talented. He has multi-million-dollar contracts with Scholastic, with Roblox, everything. Oh, wow. He's doing tremendous. But I put him in touch with a lawyer and an art agency to handle him. I can still work with him. We've done projects together. So that was the caveat that in his contracts, it does not exclude him from working with me. And that's really all I want. I don't want to manage your whole career. I want to be able to work with you directly, handpick, the artists that fit a project, not spend all my time, it's like sports agents represent, if they're lucky, maybe 2 great athletes or whatever, and that's their business.
Yeah.
That's not my business representing anymore.
So if someone comes to you, you would be like, listen, I'm not going to be exclusive with you, but hey, let's do a project together where you're going to do 100 prints. Yeah. I'm going to sell them this and you split it 50-50. Is that how it works?
Or I could put them in a hotel.
Okay.
There's a couple of artists, one that's from New Jersey over here that my daughter-in-law connected me with, and she does these beautiful shell paintings. But when I first saw it, I was like, what am I going to do with shell paintings? I don't know what to do with shell paintings. And then the White Elephant Nantucket came up, and very different than the one in Palm Beach. They really wanted things that resonated with Nantucket. And I contacted her and I said, look, I may have a project for you. I'll fly you out to Nantucket. I want you to collect shells and things from the beaches. She had never been. And this way it's authentic, it's
absolutely.
And we photographed her doing that. And there was this whole story. And I commissioned her to do 21 paintings for the White Elephant.
Well, what kind of contract was that? Can you talk about it?
It wasn't really a contract. It was, the contract was you're going to make 21 paintings. We decided on what the subject matter was going to be and the size. And that was that. She did a great job. And now I may be able to get her into the Aspen Hotel also.
That's amazing.
So things come to you in different ways.
Yeah, especially when you're traveling the way you do.
Yeah. Well, that's really why I travel so much, is that I'm always looking for resources. I can't be a one-trick pony. Even if I had an enormous amount of success in one project, the last thing I can do or would do is to repeat it someplace else.
Right. And industries evolve, and you're in a business that's very subjective, that's evolving and
in real
arguably
time.
one of the fastest ways possible. So you really have to be seeing it all to exactly like, oh, not a copy of this. And
I have to be ahead of it.
right.
Really ahead of it. So when I come to you and you haven't heard who this artist is, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Because you didn't travel to Mexico City like I just did to go to Zonamaca Art Fair or to go to Freeze LA next week. That's my edge for my client. And a lot of times, when they want to schedule meetings, I'm like, no, I'm going to be here, here, and here. And they have come to understand that that is part of how I can really source and help them and get things within their budget. And, they could be, seen as really bringing something new. Because by the time these development projects are done, 2 years go by.
Yeah.
So that artist already got to where I wanted him to go.
Right.
And now everybody looks like they're really smart.
Yeah.
Do you have a big list of things you've missed? And let me be specific about that. So in real estate, right, there's always, and for me, I register it or I measure it by deals I should have bought when I could have bought them. Like I was in the position to do it and just didn't. There's got to be a lot of those where you're like, I knew it, or I didn't see it.
Bringing up sore subjects there.
There's got to be in the art world. That's got to be big.
Well, the biggest. So because I drink my own Kool-Aid, right? So this is my business, but I am a crazy collector.
Okay.
I have artwork.
I think you have to be
everywhere,
like that, right?
everywhere. My mother's house, everybody. I have 2 offices full of artwork. So when I was starting out collecting, I was only buying things that would fit on my walls or in my house. Okay. So I'm in San Francisco. I have 9 projects going on in San Francisco at one time. I go to a gallery called Wendy Norris. Wendy Norris has really great taste. And she really, I know this now in retrospect, like really always had her finger on the pulse of what could be great. So I go to her gallery. There's 2 artists there that I fall in love with. One is Firole Baez, and the other one is Simone Yvette Lee. Now, the Firole Baez was $6,000. It was a work on paper, pretty big. I bought that because I could hang it in my house. The other work was a sculpture by Simone Yvette Lee, which was this grass skirt with a ceramic head, and on the ceramic head were these beautiful shells. Well, Simone Yvette Lee recently had a major work on the High Line. If you remember, like going over the overpass, there was this black sculpture of a woman with a big skirt or whatever. Okay. She's represented by Hauser and Wirth now. I could have bought that for $11,000. Where was I going to put this thing? And it was going to come in a giant crate. I couldn't even, where was I going to store it? So I didn't buy that. She's represented by Hauser and Wirth. That would be worth over $1 million. That's the worst one.
Okay.
The story about Firole Baez is not bad, though, because I bought that for $6,000, and it is now, just got picked up last week. It is going to travel to 3 museums. The first is the ICA in Boston. It's worth 6 figures. It's not worth 7 yet. Yeah. But,
how many years?
I would say 2017. The artwork from Firole Baez.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
But what happens in the art world is like when they come out and they pop, like no one's popping 30 years later, right? They're going to probably come out within 10 years.
Well, there are some people that pop 30 years later. It takes their whole lives. You think they're an overnight success, but no. But yeah, contemporary art tends to move quickly, but then it could have a little bit of a backpedaling because you could be today's darling and then not so much anymore. Yeah. So it's just like the stock market. If you're passionate, you're going to keep it. You're not going to sell it regardless of where it goes. That's different than the stock market, right? Your business is to make money on that. I've seen things go up and I didn't sell because I was like, oh no, it's still going to go. And then it backpedals. Doesn't fall off the face of the earth.
Right.
But it's not as hot as it was because somebody comes along and takes that crown position kind of thing. So
interesting. I know that you've done a lot of work with David Burke.
Yep.
He's got a bunch of restaurants in the New York area.
The Red Horse restaurants we've done a lot with great success. And David happens to be a passionate private art collector himself. Yeah. Which goes back to, what I was saying. A lot of restaurants are not really spending a lot of money on fine art. They'll spend it on, decorative walls and wall coverings and kind of neon and that kind of thing, but not fine art. And that's with David, it's because he really has always collected art.
Right.
So he and I have worked together on a number of projects, and he's just a lot of fun. So.
Yeah. Tell us, I'm sure you have a lot of interesting stories. Tell us one or two, highlight stories in your career of something interesting that happened or some crazy experience. We were talking off camera. I know you had one or two you want to talk about.
Okay. So the one that I started to tell you about is also about investment, and where I was in Paris and I saw Richard Pettibone's solo exhibition at David's Werner. And he had these big waves on the walls that were works on paper, and they were $2 million. When I came home, I went to the IFPDA print fair, and I see this wave. It's about this big. It's an edition of 50. And I said, how much you want for that? And he says, $9,000. And I was like, I just came back from Paris, and the waves are $2 million. I mean, I know they're unique and they're really large. He said, no, they're $9,000. I said, okay, I'll take one. I walk through the fair. I see a friend of mine. I said, what do you think of those Pettibone? He goes, I bought 4 of them. I said, really? So I go back, and I'm like, I'm going to get another 2. So I said, I'll take 2 more. He goes, nope. And he moved the price to $15,000. But then he put a caveat that you could only buy, each person could only buy 1, so that he wasn't going to allow anybody to buy the whole edition.
So now who is this person? He just happens to own the prints?
He was the publisher, like I was doing.
Oh, I see.
Back then.
Okay.
So when you go to the print fair, the booths typically are either gallery owners or print publishers. So some of the big print publishers in the industry are Gemini GEL, Pace, Poligrafica from Barcelona. So that's who occupies these booths. They're the ones that were me a long time ago that find the artist, make a deal with them, and do a print edition. So I get this. It's in 2019. I get this edition. I have it. Pandemic comes. All my construction projects shut down, and I can't deliver the art. So typically I get 50% when they decide to purchase or commission the art, and the other 50, the rest of my payment, when it gets installed. Nothing's getting installed, making no money, and I have a lot of bills. I text my friend who I know bought 4. I said, do you have any idea what this is worth now? And I'm on a plane when I'm texting him because I'm like sweating it out like 2020. And he's like, it's $90,000. I said, really, can you sell it? And he goes, well, what do you want for it? I get off the plane and I said, look, if you sell it, is it okay if I net 80, you take 10? He said, yeah. In a week, it was sold.
That's unbelievable. It's just in a couple of years.
But what the real kicker is that I was in Art Basel, Miami this December, and that same print is up on the wall in a booth for $250,000.
But that 80 helped you at the time?
I needed it.
All relative.
Yeah, it's all relative.
And it's almost 10x. I mean.
Yeah, but some things hit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things I want to say about art, when you talk about investment, that's different than real estate is you don't have to pay real estate tax on it. You don't have to do maintenance on it. You don't have to mow the lawn. And you can pick it up and sell it in any world market. You cannot do that with the Empire State Building.
You're right.
So it's a different commodity.
Properly, essentially.
And that is why a lot of very wealthy people actually offset their investment portfolio from stocks, real estate, and art.
Makes sense. Liquid.
And it's more liquid than you think because stocks, you have to trade it in whatever stock exchange you bought, right? So the New York Stock Exchange, you can't take it and sell it in Hong Kong. Same thing with real estate. But with art, you could roll up a canvas and take it to Switzerland and sell it. And you could ship it to Hong Kong.
I was talking to her a year or two ago, and she's like, oh, I'm flying down to Miami. I'm decorating the art in somebody's yacht.
Yes,
true. That's cool.
Yeah.
True. And one of the yachts that we're doing right now is the founder of Home Depot, Arthur Blank, who is building a yacht in the same shipyard of Elon Musk. It's going to be 353 feet long.
Wow.
And so, at what point did they call you? I'm sorry, Rob. At what point did they call you and say, hey, we want you to put the art in here? Because they're building the ship now.
Yeah, way early because they want all commission pieces. I'm not the only person working on that. I just happen to work with a really phenomenal artist, Kaisa Johnson, who he's also the owner of the Falcons, I believe, and her work is in Falcon Stadium. She's also in Dallas Stadium. So that's another thing. It's like art has permeated all these VIP lounges and stadiums and things. And a lot of the reason is because the people that own these teams, they're savvy. They have art in their homes. You know, it's like, it's
also
more
how they
than
flex.
Because
people
it's
go
more
there.
than the watch, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I got all the watches I can have.
Right.
Now I want, you know, the masterpiece in my home.
And also the hospitality industry has changed, right? Things have gotten so much more expensive. And I follow some big hospitality guys, and I listen to these podcasts constantly. And like they say, like even like going to like a ballpark, for example, it's not okay to serve horrible food anymore. Like now you have to step your game up. Yeah. It's the same concept, whether it's a hotel or anything like that. People want that full experience, or they're just not going to go there.
Well, it's too many options. So much money to go. You can't go there and have shitty food anymore. I mean,
no, not when
exactly.
You know what the Legends tickets cost at Yankee Stadium?
Right.
Although they are known to have like 5-star food.
Right.
It's people have weddings there.
So I have one last question, if I may. So if you're listening to this podcast, you either have some real estate, don't have real estate, you have, you know, $100 or you have millions of dollars. How do you get into the art game? How do you start? Like what do you suggest to somebody that like doesn't own their first piece of art?
Well, you don't buy art on a cruise ship.
Okay.
Because that's usually garbage.
Okay.
No matter what they tell you. I think if you want to do it on your own, it's a little difficult. And you can go to galleries if you're fortunate enough to live in a place like New York, you can develop your own taste and start to understand the art world kind of the way I did by going to a gallery. It was so foreign to me. I didn't grow up with any art. Well, my family didn't take me to museums. We went to the zoo. We went to Yankee Stadium. But, you know, things have evolved where parents do take their kids to MoMA and the Met and all of that. Mm-hmm. So you can navigate it a little bit, but it is best to have an art consultant that can guide you. And you say, look, I'm not ready to go deep into this, but I'd really like to get a couple of things for my home or start to build a collection. Can you help me? And I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. I'm actually meant to do this a while ago because I was like staying in the city and I was just thinking I'm doing the same thing this weekend. And it happens to be a bunch of galleries over there. And I walked into a place and this guy was good. And he almost convinced me to buy this stuff, right? And like, I had no idea. He was like, he convinced me it was going to be worth $1 billion.
That's a bad, nobody with a great reputation will ever go that far.
And I walked out of there and I'm like, what am I doing? I need to reach out to somebody like you. Because it was.
Just text me. I do. So I get invited to a lot of fabulous collectors' homes in places like Miami, Palm Beach, you know, all over the country when I'm there, even Mexico City, Eugenio Lopez, who owns Umex, what an art collection. But when I'm at these, parties or events, a lot of times there's a lot of celebrities there. So I'm at a holiday party of this one big collector who happens to have all the Miami Dolphins there at the time. And the performance is by, other than Diana Ross, the living supremes that are left. I mean, it's like over the top. Justin Bieber is there. So I start talking to this gentleman and we're talking and I think I'm being very smart and we're talking about art. And then I said to him, so do you have any hot air ballooning trips planned coming up? And he's like, what? I said, yeah, you hot air balloon, all over the world. And he starts laughing really hard. And I was like, oh God, what did I do? And he says to me, what's your name? I said, Emily Santangelo. And he sticks out his hand and he goes, you think I'm Richard Branson? I said, you're not? He goes, no, I'm Barry Gibb.
He looked just like him?
He was Barry Gibb.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Barry Gibb is better than Richard Branson.
Wow.
I was like,
wow.
I go home, I tell my mother I meet Barry Gibb. She's like, what are the odds of that?
Wow.
Did he sing a little bit for you?
No, we just laughed. And then his wife, who's Latin, came over and she's like, darling, what are you laughing about? Who is this creature? And she's like pulling him away.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I stuck my foot in my mouth, but he thought it was funny and he knows Richard Branson. So he's like, I can't wait to go tell Richard.
Yeah.
So,
well, listen, I know it's all fun and games, but the truth is you're on the road 20 to 25 days a month.
Yeah.
And I know it's a super rigorous schedule just to keep this thing going. I know a lot of people think it's just like a sexy, luxurious world, but I mean, listen, you put a lot of miles in.
I do.
And you can always catch her on social media kicking the side of that plane before she gets on it.
Exactly.
And so listen, I know you have a passion for this craft, and you put a lot of hard work into
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
A lot of fun.